This morning's reading is taken from Luke chapter 2, beginning to read at verse 22, and it can be found on page 1028 in Church Bibles. Luke chapter 2 and verse 22. When the time of their purification, according to the law of Moses, had been completed, Joseph and Mary took Jesus to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, as it is written in the law of the Lord. Every firstborn male is to be consecrated to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice in keeping with what is said in the law of the Lord: a pair of doves or 2 young pigeons. Now there was a man in Jerusalem called Simeon, who was righteous and devout. He was waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was upon him. It had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not die before he had seen the Lord's Christ. Moved by the Spirit, he went into the temple courts. When the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him what the custom of the law required, Simeon took him in his arms and praised God, saying, "Sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you now dismiss your servant in peace. For mine eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all people, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and for glory to your people Israel." The child's father and mother marvelled at what was said about him. Then Simeon blessed them and said to Mary his mother, "This child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed. And a sword will pierce your own soul too." This is the word of the Lord.
This morning I want to start by reading you an exciting story. Is that okay? So it was an exciting story. I'm going to try that again. This morning I would like to start by reading you an exciting story. Is that okay? That's better. Let's have that kind of effort every week, eh? Okay, this is an exciting story. You need to use your imagination to put yourself really in the story, and then you'll get the full effect of the excitement. And I'm warning you now, it's a bit gripping, so if you have a nervous disposition, then just prepare yourself. Once upon a time, there was a duck called Duncan. The end. Who loved that story? Who didn't like that story? Why not? Too short. Okay, but that was everything about the story. What more could be said? All right, I'll give you another bit, right? Another bit of the story. Let's extend it a little bit. Duncan flew quickly, as he knew it was important to help his friends. He arrived at a place where they were in trouble. The end. Now who likes the story? Less people? That was full of excitement, no? Okay. The story, the first story I read to you there, people saying it's too short. People wanted to know what happened next to Duncan. And as I write it, I'll tell you in future sermons. but you want more. But if that was all that the story was, it would be a bit rubbish. The story of Duncan the Duck is much more than that. Even when I added another bit in, there's so many questions. What was he doing? Why were his friends in trouble? All of these things that I know you're asking yourself. And it's a bit like that with the Christmas story. It's a bit like that with Christmas. The other day, I was having a conversation with someone, and they said to me, that's it, it's over for another year. And then he said, I always think it's a bit of an anticlimax. And let me be so bold as if to say that if Christmas for you is an anticlimax, then you're doing it wrong. Because Christmas is much more than one day. And it is much more than just a baby was born. It's like Duncan the Duck. It goes beyond that bit. And you know me by now, you know that sometimes I have a kind of simple understanding of things. And my first experience of the Bible was a bit like my first experience of Star Wars. So when I was a child, I watched Star Wars, and I was amazed. I loved it. And probably since that time, Star Wars had helped me understand the Bible more. But I loved it, the Jedis, and the Empire, and the Force, and all of the things, good versus evil. I loved that. But one thing that confused me when I was a child watching Star Wars was at the bit at the beginning, the iconic scene where the words are all on the screen, where it said Episode 4. Right, Episode 4. Which spoke to me that there had to be something before that, like Episodes 1, 2, and 3. And hopefully there would be something after that, which we now know that there is 9 in the series. I only really acknowledged 4 of them, but there are 9. And I knew that there was something, and it was a bit like my first experience of the Bible was the nativity play at school. Now everybody in my school, we wanted to be in it, all of the boys, but nobody really wanted to be Joseph. Although it was the prime gig, it was, the headline. You had to put your arm around a girl. And then, at 6 years old, nobody wanted that. Fast forward 10 years, and it was very different. But everybody wanted to do it. But that was my first understanding of the Bible. The first thing I knew that Jesus was born of a virgin, and there were shepherds and wise, and all of this. And then I grew to understand, like we did with Star Wars, that there was something before and there was something after. And it's the same now. As we, on Wednesday, we celebrated the anniversary of the birth of Jesus, although probably, we know it wasn't the exact day. But like I was saying to my friend the other day, that it's just the beginning of the story of Jesus' birth. And even then, it's not really the beginning, it's the middle. Because Jesus was there at the beginning of creation. And as we heard in the reading there with Simeon and the temple and Jesus coming to the temple, I guess what the headline of this would be that the celebration is not over. So let's just put our place in the story, set ourselves in the story for a few moments. Jesus had been born. And a bit like now for us, it's that time after Christmas Day where it's all very good and nice, but you're not quite sure what to do, and you know that reality is coming again, going back to work and all the things that you do. Normality, or what is perceived as normality, is coming. And I guess it was a bit like that for Mary and Joseph. There'd been a bit of a whirl and all of these things that had happened, and they'd still be chatting to each other saying, what about this, and what about that? And the shepherds just turned up, and how did they know we're there? And the star, and all of these things. But they were getting back to a sense of normality. And it was customary to present the firstborn son in the temple as holy to the Lord. That's what people did. So that's what they were doing. They were taking the firstborn son to the temple to present him as holy to the Lord. And Simeon was there. He was an older, godly man. And God had promised Simeon that he would not die until he had seen the Messiah. The prophesied Messiah. And he knew instantly, amongst the whole crowd and everything that was going on there that day, he knew that this baby was the Messiah. It says he took him in his arms and he stated that God could now dismiss him, that he could now die, because he had seen the Lord's salvation. He spoke prophetically over Jesus. And the thing that struck me when I was just looking at this over recent days, about this scene here, is how Trinitarian it is. So here we have the Son being presented to the Father, while the Holy Spirit is prophesying through Simeon over the Son. The whole of the Trinity is active and encapsulated in this one scene. And that was just overwhelming for me, that everything, the whole God in all his fullness was in that place in 3 parts at one moment. And I would suspect that the majority of people there didn't realise what was going on. And I think this is a good reminder for us as we read what Simeon's saying about Jesus, who he is and who he'll become. Because there's so much in this passage, but for the next couple of minutes I just want to focus on one thing. That the birth of Jesus had been celebrated. It had been declared, it had been a good, positive thing. But now it was time to look forward. When Simeon saw Jesus, he didn't see a cute baby. He didn't gush over the baby as people do. People see a baby and they get all excited and giddy, and it's all very nice. But Simeon didn't see a baby just as a baby. He saw the Messiah and everything that encapsulates. And we've just celebrated this Christmas Day, but the celebration isn't over. It's important for us to remember that the miracle was not simply that a baby was born. Now, babies are miraculous. The childbirth, I can't get my head around it. It's a miracle. But the miracle in this story was not simply that a baby had been born. Babies were born all the time then, they're born all the time now. The miracle, the point, the significance is that this baby was God. This baby was God come in human form. Fully human and fully God. And that's the thing that we celebrate. He had came to earth as a baby. The same God that had thrown the stars into space, that had aligned all the planets, that created the universe, that breathed life into every creature, including you and me, that was that child. And like the story with Duncan the duck, it's important that we don't simply celebrate Jesus' birth and leave it there. Celebrating Jesus' birth is only really relevant in the context of what comes next. It's a bit, if we do that, if we stop at the birth and just see Jesus as a baby and it's great, and all the effort that we put into remembering as a baby, we just do that. It's like reading the first chapter of a book and not finishing it. Watching the first episode of a TV show, the first act of a play, and so on. And it's an interesting time now between Christmas and New Year, where we look back, but we also start to look forward to everything that the New Year could bring. And it should be the same for us with Jesus. We should celebrate that he was born, but only because of everything that comes from that. His ministry, his teachings, things that we can learn from the spiritual principles that he shared with us. His death, his resurrection, the salvation that's freely available to each and every one of us because of that. And the fact that he is coming again, that will be that second advent. And our lives, I think, should reflect that. That Christmas is a reminder of part of the story. But we need to read the whole thing. We need to live the whole thing. Because every day we get to celebrate all that came after that. And it's not just about certain periods of the year where we remember that. We get to celebrate all of Jesus every single day. The Jesus that was at the beginning of creation, that was there and spoke when the stars were put into place. The Jesus that died as a sacrifice for the whole of humanity. And a Jesus that will come again and make everything perfect. That's what we need to remember. So as we gather here this morning, that's the thing that I want to leave us all with, is that we've celebrated Jesus' birth. But we should celebrate Jesus every single day. And we should remember what came after his birth. Amen.
Amen.
And what we're going to do as a response to this now is I'm going to pray, and then after that,